Hello everyone and welcome back to exercise number 52 of the SolidWorks basic tutorial series. In this video, we're going to be designing a flanged bearing house. Now, as always, in designing this part within SolidWorks, we're going to be using many of the SolidWorks features, namely the extrude boss base tool and extrude cut tool, but also in rounding out these edges here, we're going to be using the fillet tool very heavily. Here we see the schematic drawing for exercise number 52. All dimensions are in millimeters. If we zoom in closely here, we see that the unit system is set to millimeters, grams, and seconds. We have the isometric view, the diametric view. These are two pictorial views showcasing the component at two different angles. We have the top view, the section view. The section view is taken along this horizontal line here, section AA. And we have an auxiliary section view, an additional section view taken along this vertical line. Okay, so we have two section views. And these section views showcase the internal features for the component. All right, so of course, as always, we need to answer this question. What is the mass of this part in grams? And we should give this answer within a tolerance of plus or minus 1 gram, and we're instructed to use a material of ASI 10-point steel. All right, so as always, we're going to follow a feature-driven approach. So the first step, I think, would be to create the base plate for the component by sketching out the 2D profile. You can see here on the top plane. And then proceed by modeling this midsection here, which is basically a slot sketch, then the extruded slot sketch. After that, we're going to work on creating these features here at the top. Of course, we have this rectangular flange here, in addition to the mounting holes, the 4 mounting holes. And we have these two features here on either side of the component, these two cylinders. And for that, we're going to have to use the extrude boss base tool to create the cylindrical body, and then extrude cut tool to create the opening of ones all the way through to the other side. One key thing here is to notice that we have an opening here, a recess. And the 2D profile for this recess is a slot, because if you notice closely here that we have a hidden line here represented by a 2D slot. So the 2D profile for this opening is a slot. Keep that in mind. All right, so after that, that's pretty much it. Yeah, after we create the slot, we're going to use the extrude cut tool to create the opening. And yeah, it's a pretty straightforward process. After completing the modeling process, we're going to round out certain edges using the fillet tool. And the only thing we need to keep in mind here is that the fillet radius for all fillets, unless stated otherwise, is set to 5 millimeters. And the only fillet which is not found 5 millimeters is the fillet right here, right? Between the top boss and the top face of the square rectangular flange, which corresponds to this edge right here, okay? It has a fillet radius of 2.5 millimeters. All right, so with that aside, let's get started with exercise number 52. Okay, so let's start by creating a new SolidWorks part. Let's set the background to plain white, and let's copy exercise number 52 into SolidWorks. Let's go ahead and make this smaller, and then drag this upwards. All right, so the first step is to model the base plate for the component. And if we look closely here, the base plate is composed of 2 very large circles, okay, and 4 smaller ones. And there, of course, is a symmetry for the component along the Y and X axis, all right? So we're going to utilize this symmetry to create the 2D sketch for the base plate. So to start, let's go ahead and select the top plane, sketch, drag this upwards, and select circle. And the circle needs to be situated horizontally with respect to the origin. So let's draw one larger circle, in addition to a smaller circle here at the top, all right? Activate the Smart Dimension tool, and from the figure, we see that the radius of the larger circle should be 50 millimeters. So automatically, this needs to have a diameter of 100 millimeters. Let's set the relation between the center of this circle and the origin as horizontal by pressing the H key on my keyboard. Or you just do this manually. All right. And then activate the Smart Dimension tool again, and we see that the distance between one center of the circle to the other for these smaller circles is 100 millimeters. So with respect to the origin, it's going to be half of that, which is 50, right? So this needs to be 50. And the distance between this center and the larger center of these 2 larger circles is 80 millimeters, so half of that is 40. So the distance between this point and this point is 40 millimeters. Likewise, the distance between one end of the circle to the other is 120, so half of that should be 60. So the distance between the center, or this origin, and this point should be 60 millimeters. All right? All right, so we have one more dimension to assign here. We have, what else? The radius of the circle. If we look closely here, we see that we have 4 circles, and each circle has a radius of 10 millimeters, so we have a diameter of 20 millimeters. All right, so now the sketch is fully defined, so let's activate the line tool and just close off the sketch by creating a tangent line connecting these 2 circles. All right, now let's activate the center line tool and let's draw 2 center lines, one horizontal center line and another vertical one. All right, so let's drag this downwards so we get to see the horizontal line. Okay, now let's activate the mirror tool, and for the entities to mirror, let's go ahead and select this circle and this tangent line. We're going to mirror this about this horizontal line. And then select OK. We're going to repeat the same process here by selecting mirror and selecting all of the entities actually. All right, mirror about this vertical line. And then click OK. Activate the line tool and then just close off the figure by 2 horizontal lines. That's 1 and 2. All right, so now we have the outer profile for the base plate. Of course, the sketches were defined, so let's just activate the trim tool and any extra entities that we don't need. In addition to, of course, the center lines we created. Of course, some of the sketches that we created are going to become underdefined because we lost, certain relations. That's not a big problem. We shouldn't worry about that. Okay. So now, of course, we have the 2D sketch. So very simply, just press the S key, extrude boss base. And if we look at the section view here, we see that the thickness for the base plate is 10 millimeters. All right, so this needs to be 10. By default, it's already set to 10, and then click OK. All right, so that creates the base plate for the components. Moving on to the intermediate section right here, we see that we have a slot profile, a 2D slot profile for this 3D feature. So let's go ahead and select this top face, sketch, select the slot tool, center slot tool actually, and from the center here, go ahead and draw a slot. Activate the Smart Dimension tool, and we see that the length of the slot from one center to the next is 100, or actually 80 millimeters. So this is 80 millimeters. And the radius right here for this slot, or actually for this circular slot right here, is 40 millimeters. So the radius here is 40 millimeters. All right, so now just press the S key, extrude boss base, and we're going to extrude this midsection right here to an overall height of 40 millimeters. All right, so enter a thickness or height of 40 millimeters, and then click OK. All right. So now what do we have? We actually have 4 mounting holes we need to create for the base plate that coincide with the centers of these curved fillets right here, with the circles that we've just drawn. So go ahead and select this surface, sketch, activate the circle tool, and just wake up the center point right here and draw 4 circles. That's 2, 3, and 4. All right. Go ahead and select these 4 holes by pressing down the Control key on your keyboard, and then pressing E for equal. So the relation between these 4 holes are all equal now. Activate the Smart Dimension tool, and we see from the top view that we have 4 holes, and the diameter of every hole is 10 millimeters. So this needs to be 10. Now press the S key, extrude cut, right-click on your mouse, and set the condition as through all. All right, so the hole is going to be created all the way through the E component. Click OK. And that's the mounting hole for the 4 holes. Okay, now let's work on this extrude section right here, in addition to the square flange that we have. So go ahead and select this top face, sketch, activate the circle tool, and from this center point right here, draw a circle. what we're doing right now is sketching out the 2D profile for this cylinder here. All right, so we have a cylinder with a base diameter of 40 millimeters. So activate the Smart Dimension tool. This should be 40 millimeters. Press the S key, extrude boss base. And looking at the section view, we see that the distance, the extrusion height from this surface all the way to the top should be 45 millimeters. So enter a distance of 45 and then click OK. And there you have it. All right. Now, on top of this cylinder, there should be a square flange, or rectangular flange, actually. So go ahead and select this top base, sketch, activate the center rectangle tool. And from the center of this circle right here, just activate the center point, draw a rectangle. Activate the Smart Dimension tool, and if we look closely, we see that the length from this edge to this edge, corresponding, of course, to this dimension, should be 75. So this should be 75 millimeters. And as for the distance between this edge and this edge, on the other side of the rectangle, it's 87 millimeters. All right, so this edge needs to be 87 millimeters. So now just press the S key, extrude boss base, and we're going to extrude this to a thickness of, I think it's 10 millimeters. Yeah, it's 10. All right, so enter a thickness of 10, and press Enter on keyboard. Of course, we have the 4 edges of this rectangle need to be rounded out. So to do that, let's just use the fillet tool. Select fillet, and the fillet radius here actually needs to be 12.5 millimeters. So enter a fillet radius of 12.5. And then proceed by selecting the 4 corners of the rectangle here. All right. Okay, so now we're going to work on this boss here at the top. So select this face, sketch, activate the circle tool. And from this point right here, draw a circle. The circle, again, needs to have a diameter of 40 millimeters. So this needs to be 40. Press the S key, extrude boss base. Looking at the section view, we see that this boss should have a extrusion height of 5 millimeters. So enter extrusion height of 5 and then press OK. Now, one last thing you need to do is need to open up certain mounting holes for the 4 corners of the rectangular flange at the top. So go ahead and select this face, sketch, activate the circle tool. And just hovering over this curved surface will wake up the center right here of the circle. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. Select these 4 circles. Set the relation as equal. Activate the Smart Dimension tool. And if we look at the drawing here, we see that we have 4 holes, and the diameter of every hole needs to be 10 millimeters. So this needs to be 10. Okay, so now it's all 10. Press the S key, extrude cut. Set the relation as up to next by right-clicking on your mouse, so that the extrusion cut will go all the way to the outside, and then click OK. All right, so that creates the mounting holes. Now, we look closely at the isometric view. We have a cylindrical protrusion here at the top. So very simply, just select this top face, sketch, activate the circle tool, and starting from this center right here, draw a circle. Smart Dimension, we see that from the drawing, of course, we have a diameter of 40 millimeters. So this needs to be 40. Press the S key, extrude boss base. Looking at the drawing, we see that we have from this surface all the way to the top is 20 plus 10, which is 30. All right. And then click OK. Now there's these cylinders here at the sides. So let's go ahead and create that. So go ahead and select this surface, sketch, and if we look at the section view, the auxiliary section view that we have right here, we see that we have 2 cylinders. The larger cylinder has a diameter of 24 millimeters, and the smaller cylinder has a diameter of 20 millimeters. And each cylinder is extruded at a distance of 15 millimeters. So let's go ahead and start by sketching out the profile for the smaller cylinder, which is a circle of 20 millimeters. So starting from this point right here, this 20. Activate the smart dimension tool, and the diameter of this hole or this circle needs to be 20 millimeters. Now we just need to situate this properly. So if we look closely here, we see the distance from this point, or the center of this cylinder, all the way to the circle should be 40 millimeters. All right. So if we activate this part right here, and this needs to be 40. All right. Now we see that the vertical distance, or actually distance from the bottom of the component all the way to the center of the circle, should be 25 millimeters. All right, so distance between this circle and the bottom edge is 25 millimeters. Now the sketch is fully defined. Just press the S key, extrude boss base, set the extrusion distance or length to 15 millimeters. Click OK. And we're going to repeat the same process for the larger cylinder here. Look closely, we have a larger cylinder at the top, directly on top of the smaller cylinder. So select this circle, sketch, and then draw another circle, a slightly larger circle. Activate the Smart Dimension tool. This needs to be 24 millimeters. Press the S key, extrude boss base, set the distance to 15, click OK. All right. Now we're going to mirror this to the other side. So select mirror. As for the planes that we're going to be using, we'll just select the front plane, right? Because it cuts the component directly in half right here. And as for the features, go ahead and select the last two features that we used. All right. And then click OK. So that's it. Are we done yet? No. There are two major things we need to do. We need to open up the component at certain locations. For example, we have this hole here that runs all the way to the bottom, all the way through the component. And we have this void here, this recess, starting at the bottom of the component all the way to a certain height, okay? But if we look closely here, the recess actually has a slot profile, because if we look at this hidden line right here, this hidden line, the slot hidden line, corresponds to the opening here at the bottom. All right. So what are we going to do? First we need to do is we're going to select this bottom face, sketch, select the center rectangle tool, and starting from the center here, draw a rectangle. Distance from this line right here, from one center to the next, is 80 millimeters. And as for the radius, if we look closely, actually we have the distance and the diameter, which is 60 millimeters, right? So distance from this point, or this edge to this edge, should be 60 millimeters. All right. Now, very simply, we're just going to press the S key, extrude cut, and we're going to cut this 2D profile all the way to a thickness of, or cut depth of 40 millimeters. As we look here from this edge all the way to the top is 40 millimeters. All right, so right click on your mouse, select blind, and set the distance as 40 millimeters. And then click OK. All right, so that creates the recess we need at the bottom. So now we're just going to open this surface here. So select this surface, sketch, activate the circle tool, and draw a circle. Smart dimension, and after that we're going to create a hole with a diameter of 20 millimeters. All right, and we're going to cut this hole all the way through to the other side. S key, extrude cut, right click on your mouse and set the end condition as up to next. Click OK. All right, so that's the hole that we need. Are there any other holes? Yes, we have a hole here running from this end all the way to the other. All right, so what are we going to do? We're going to select this face, sketch, activate the circle tool, and we're going to draw a circle. The section view, we see that we have a circle here with a diameter of 10 millimeters. So the hole here should have a diameter of 10 millimeters. Press the S key, extrude cut, and we're going to cut this hole all the way through to the other side. So select through both directions. So that creates the hole. All right. All right. So now, if you look closely here, we have a recess or an opening corresponding to the cylinder here that we have at the top. So what we're going to do, actually, a much smarter way to do this is actually to select this top face, sketch. Bear with me here, okay? Select the circle tool, and this just draw a circle. All right. And if we look closely here, we see that the circle should have a diameter of 20 millimeters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to perform a offset extrude cut. All right, so we're not going to cut this starting from this surface. We're actually going to start cutting at a certain distance and then offset this sketch actually, or this 2D sketch at a certain distance and then perform the cut operation. So go to Features, Extrude Cut. Here we have a condition of the cutting condition, which is set to sketch plane by default. Go ahead and select Offset. All right. And if we look at the drawing here, we're actually going to start the cut operation at an offset distance of 10 millimeters. So set the offset distance as 10 millimeters. Flip the direction. All right. And then right here, set the end condition as up to next. All right. And then click OK. So we have the hole here. So if we perform a section view, we can very clearly see that we have the required void for this cylinder. All right, so is there anything else we need to do? Yes, there's one last thing we need to do. We need to round out certain edges. And there's a very important comment here that says all fillets, unless stated otherwise, have a radius of 5 millimeters. All right, so the only fillet that we actually have a dimension for is the fillet right here, which is 2.5. Other than that, all of it is going to be 5 millimeters. So just select fillet, set the fillet radius as 5 millimeters, and then just select the edges that you need. Now this edge, guided of course by the isometric view that we have. We have this edge, and this bottom edge right here. Is there anything else? I don't think so. No, we have the edge here, the inner edge for the opening. So go ahead and I think it's already selected. All right, and then click OK. And yeah, we have all the necessary fillets. The final fillet we need to create is the fillet for this edge right here, which is 2.5. So select fillet, change the fillet radius to 2.5 millimeters, and then select this edge right here. Of course, you can add any more fillets that you need. Of course, that will give you a different answer from what I'm going to get. But you can add chamfers and different, you can round out certain edges that you believe should be rounded out. For example, the edge right here at the bottom. It's up to you. All right, so that ends the modeling process. So we just need to assign a material now. Right click here, edit material. Select ASI 1020 steel, apply, close, go to the evaluate tab, and then select mass properties. The final answer that we have for the mass for the component is 3,875.87 grams. 3,875.87 grams, which is, approximately 3.9 kilograms. We want to round things out. Let's go ahead and delete this image. Okay, so that concludes exercise number 52. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them down in the comment section below. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate your subscription. Until I meet you all in exercise number 53, have a nice one. Bye-bye.